Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners. Welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. Are you sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling video game? Stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create a wrestler, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users totally free. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your name in the shout-outs like my buddy John out down there in Texas, then pop over to patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sponsor the show today. $15 a month contributors get to co-host a live episode with myself. $7.50 a month contributors enter into a drawing to also host a live show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. If you've got questions, comments, anything you'd like us to talk about, give us a shout at the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line, 267-642-1160. Whatever it is you want to talk about, we'll get it onto a future episode. Give us a shout there. It is a talk-to-text service. Tell us what you want. We'll get a text about it, and we'll cover it in the future show. Don't forget, you also got to check out the Pro Wrestling Podcast homepage at ProWrestling.com to see anything and everything about the Pro Wrestling Podcast shows and events and happenings and all that kind of fun stuff. Going to get started tonight. A lot of information to cover in a short amount of time. This past weekend, for those who are traditional wrestling fans, the NWA currently being the ship being piloted by a whole new group of creativity and trying to bring back the tradition of the National Wrestling Alliance by Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins fame. Put on a great show this past weekend, the NWA Crockett Cup 2022. It was a two-night show, and for those who are fans from old school NWA wrestling, the Crockett Cup was always a two-day tournament, always headlined by the finals, crowning Crockett Cup tag team winners, who always won a massive check, and then always a world championship match. Same thing at this Crockett Cup. Night two saw the Briscoe brothers of Ring of Honor fame walk away with the Crockett Cup win, which is incredible for them. I mean, I'll be honest with you, right now they're having some uncertainty about the future, just simply because there's some backlash from some comments they made in their past that were somewhat offensive to a large group of people, and I'm a little curious to see where they end up working going forward. But in terms of, at least in the immediate future, they win the Crockett Cup, and I think this actually provides them with an opportunity to target the NWA World Tag Team Championship, which would actually be a really cool thing for them now that they're going to, I suspect, go away from the Ring of Honor banner and try to spread their wings a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised to see them end up in New Japan. I would love to see some more matches with the Guerrillas of Destiny and things of that nature. But at least for now, the NWA Crockett Cup winners, congratulations to the Briscoe brothers. On the same show, Matt Cardona versus Nick Aldis, the former NWA champion versus the current NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Jeff Jarrett was the special referee. Not going to lie, in original Crockett Cup evenings, you always saw some kind of weird ending to the World Championship match, so I guess this followed in tune with that. Horrible ending, though, if you ask me. A whole mistaken identity of who jumped in the ring and got involved. Chelsea Green, Mickey James. You know, this whole thing goes down, and there's a disqualification win for Matt Cardona. But at the same time, that kind of falls in line with historic Crockett Cup situations. You always had some kind of funky ending to their World Championship matches. But what I did love is I thought Matt Cardona represented well. I think Nick Aldis is just the epitome of class and professionalism. It's a shame that guy has not gotten to be a megastar in WWE, maybe one day. But I really feel like the NWA put on a solid show top to bottom. Whether it was the Women's Tag Team Champion, the Women's Championship match, National Heavyweight Championship, the crowning of a new Junior Heavyweight Champion in Homicide, World Television Championship. They just had a stacked card top to bottom. And I know there's going to be some wrestlers that were on the card that you're not familiar with. That's okay. Check out the show anyways if you get the opportunity. You won't be disappointed by anything that took place at that show. Moving on to some WWE news, Gable Stevenson, is now a two-time National Heavyweight Wrestling Champion for University of Minnesota. Good for him, proud of him. You know, back-to-back national championships. He's a gold medalist at the Olympics in the heavyweight division. Now he'll be headed WWE. Kind of screwed it up a little bit for himself because he mentioned about being at WrestleMania. I'm sure Vince McMahon was probably not happy about that. He tweeted that out and then shortly after the fact deleted the tweet, which tells me somebody probably called him and slapped him on the hand and said, listen, we don't want to give that away. But at the same time, I'm going to be thrilled to see what he can do. People talking about and obviously comparing him to Kurt Angle and a little bit of hint of Brock Lesnar there. I just need to see it happen in the ring. That's a lofty bar to be raised, if you're putting him up against the likes of those guys in the annals of wrestling history. But I hope he's all that and more. I really do. I think he has the right look, the right persona, just a genuinely good dude, and I wish him nothing but the best. And if he is going to appear at Mania, I think that would be fantastic. To give a little pop to WWE's programming, Steve Austin, also scheduled for Mania, is reportedly in fantastic shape ahead of WrestleMania. Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter talking about how he has just been working so hard. He's in the best shape of his life. They're expecting maybe a 7 to 10 minute interlude that is potentially going to close out night one. This will be the first time that WrestleMania night one, or in any WrestleMania, ends with something that is not technically a match, but I think everybody's dying to see what happens with Stone Cold. And the fact that he's going to get physical, and the word is he'll be taking his shirt off. He's got to be in great shape. I can't imagine. I'm hoping for really great stuff. I'm really hoping that he sees that he can still go, and maybe we get more than just this one-off with him involved. The other rumor of the week, the possible WrestleMania 38 plans for Bobby Lashley are out there. Rumor has it that Bobby Lashley is going to hook up with Omos at WrestleMania. We don't have a lot of time to build that match, but that's one I would actually be interested to see. Bobby Lashley, somebody who's very believable to beat Omos, who's been pretty much undefeated and on a tear since he became a single star. Omos, if he picked up a win over Lashley, also would be a huge stepping stone for him moving in a positive direction. The only concern is whether Lashley can go yet after his shoulder injury coming out of the Royal Rumble. We're hoping that he's ahead of schedule and can make that happen. Should be for an interesting WrestleMania moment if that's the case. Now, the one that I'm a little frustrated with is the whole Seth Rollins-Cody Rhodes thing. Now, the whole world apparently knows Cody's coming. It's almost insulting to the intelligence that they haven't allowed him to appear yet when you hear the fans at Raw the last 2 weeks literally clamoring for Cody. And it really is an insult to kayfabe. It's time to move past that. With the advent of the internet, it's time for WWE to, if they're going to have a surprise, have it fast. You can't let these things sit out there for 2-3 months and then all of a sudden think you're going to get the same reaction. We need to get this going, get this match building for Seth Rollins and Cody, and then hopefully have an absolute Mac clinic go on at WrestleMania. Cody's been putting on great matches for the last year and a half, 2 years anyways. Seth Rollins is one of the best in the business. I expect the two men to really tear it down, and I'm hoping it's everything the fans are looking forward to, because if it flops, we'll get quite the opposite reaction. We don't want that to happen. The only other thing I want to talk about today that I think is interesting is William Regal was making some comments about Vince McMahon's perceptions of Daniel Bryan on the Talk is Jericho podcast. And one of the things I found so interesting was, I guess they had a match on a European tour, and after wrestling William Regal, it was a straight up and old school wrestling style match. And when they came through the curtain, went into the gorilla position, there was a conversation between Mr. McMahon and William Regal about Daniel Bryan one day being an awesome villain character. Now, you wouldn't think that from his early run in WWE, but clearly Vince McMahon was noticing things from a much earlier stage than many of us may have been aware of, and he certainly had this interesting perspective on Daniel Bryan. So I find that to be really, really interesting, especially considering how hard it seemed to be for Daniel Bryan to get any traction early in his WWE career. And maybe, just maybe, this was a sign that maybe it wasn't quite as bad as a lot of the internet sources seem to report, and maybe Daniel Bryan had a better position than many people realized coming up towards the middle of his WWE tenure. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode. We run down the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing any music or sound effects we use in our shows. Today's show is sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bring a new friend to family game night, and it's easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this game from Beazle Games by going to prowrestling.com and grabbing a copy of Sketchy People today. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college, university life, or you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our sister website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich. better known these days as Dr. Fro, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Thank you for spending a little piece of your evening with the Fro Wrestling Podcast. Take care. Have a great evening, and don't forget to check out all the wrestling action, especially on the independent scene. If you're in my area, Triple WA, Shane Douglas coming to challenge for the 3WA World Championship Saturday, March 26th. Be there. Incredible shows. Take care, everybody. Have a great night.